60,000 construction workers lost their jobs. Not because of a recession, not because of a financial crisis, not because the country stopped needing homes. They lost their jobs because the materials needed to build those homes got so expensive, so fast, that builders across America looked at their numbers and stopped building. The National Association of Home Builders released its June Confidence Index. The number came in at 35. That is the 14th consecutive month below 50, the threshold that separates a healthy housing market from a distressed one, 14 months. And the workers who build homes, not office towers, not data centers, not warehouses, the workers who build the houses regular Americans live in, are the ones paying the price. James is a residential framing carpenter in Arizona. He makes $54,000 a year, no college degree, 14 years in the trade. Last fall, the contractor he worked for had 3 residential projects lined up for spring 2026. By February, 2 of them had been postponed indefinitely. By April, James was on the bench, not fired technically, but with no hours and no timeline for when the work would come back. The contractor didn't go out of business. He didn't lose the client. The lumber to frame those houses cost 32% more than it did 12 months earlier. The math stopped working, so the project stopped, and James stopped getting paid. Follow the decisions, not the outcomes. In the next 20 minutes, here's exactly what you're going to see. First, why construction was the last sector in America where a high school graduate could own a home in the zip code they worked in, and why that matters more than any economic statistic. Second, the specific tariff policy decisions that added $10,900 to the cost of every new home in America, and what that number did to builder confidence, housing starts, and 60,000 jobs. Third, the feedback loop that's already in motion. The permits being canceled today become the housing shortage of 2027, and the workers sitting idle in Phoenix and Austin and Central Florida are not moving to Virginia to build data centers. By the end of this, you will understand exactly how a tariff policy designed to protect American industry ended up firing the Americans who build it. Why won't the math work with residential construction workers right now? A builder in the Sun Belt gets a contract to frame 24 single-family homes. He prices out the lumber. He prices out the steel for the structural beams. He does the math on his labor costs. He submits a bid. Then the tariffs move. Lumber is up 32% since late 2025. Steel and aluminum, 50% tariffs, effective June 2025. The bid he submitted 3 months ago no longer covers his costs. He has 2 choices: raise the price on the buyer, adding $10,000 to $17,000 to a home someone is already struggling to afford at 7% mortgage rates, or hold the price and take a loss. 60% of builders have already been hit with supplier price increases. 37% are cutting their own prices just to move homes. Neither of those options creates work for James. But construction didn't start this way. Here's where it started. For most of the 20th century, construction was the escalator, not a metaphor for it. Literally, the mechanism by which a man without a 4-year degree could enter the middle class and stay there. You came up through a union apprenticeship, or you learned on the job, or you went to a vocational program for 2 years instead of 4. And if you were skilled, if you were good with your hands and reliable and willing to work, the construction sector would pay you a median wage that put you squarely in the middle of the American income distribution. Today, the average construction worker earns $52,333 a year. A skilled electrician or plumber or iron worker, no college degree required, earns between $63,000 and $97,000 at the median. The Bureau of Labor Statistics confirms it. Construction is one of the few remaining sectors where a worker without a 4-year degree can enter at median wage levels above $50,000. Think about what that meant in practice. A construction worker in 1985 in Phoenix could afford to rent an apartment, save a down payment, and buy a house in the same metropolitan area where he worked. That was the promise, not a government program, not a subsidy, just a labor market that paid working people enough to participate in the economy they were building. Here's what changed, and when. The first crack came from outside the construction sector itself. Starting in the early 2000s, as manufacturing wages stagnated and offshoring accelerated, construction absorbed a larger and larger share of the blue-collar workforce. The sector became, structurally, the last viable path for workers who had been priced out of the skilled trades in other industries. Then 2008 happened. Residential construction collapsed. 1.4 million construction jobs disappeared in 3 years. An entire generation of residential workers left the trade, and a significant share never came back. The sector rebuilt slowly through the 2000s. By 2022, residential construction employed 3.3 million people. Builders were adding workers. Demand was real. The escalator was running again. And then the input costs moved. Canadian lumber, which supplies roughly 30% of the softwood used in American home building, was already subject to anti-dumping duties going back to 2017. On February 1, 2026, a new 25% tariff on all Canadian imports was added on top of those existing duties. Effective tariff rates on softwood lumber above 40%. The escalator didn't break. It was turned off by a policy decision, and the people who felt it first were the ones who had no other escalator to get on. Here's how the tariff math actually works, and why it hits residential construction harder than any other sector. Imagine you're a home builder for a second. You are not a hedge fund. You are not a public company with a quarterly earnings call. You are a mid-sized builder in Central Florida running 15 to 30 active units at any given time. Your biggest single input cost is lumber, and your second and third biggest are steel and concrete, in that order. Lumber alone accounts for roughly 15% of the total cost of building a single-family home, which means that when lumber prices go up 32%, as they have since late 2025, that single line item adds somewhere between $9,000 and $12,000 to what it costs you to build one house. That's before steel. That's before aluminum. That's before the ripple effects through every downstream supplier who is now pricing their goods to account for uncertainty about what tariffs will be 6 months from now. The National Association of Home Builders has put the total tariff-related cost increase at $10,900 per new home. Based on supplier price increases already enacted, not projected. That number is not a forecast. Those prices have already moved. Now here's the mechanism that turns a cost increase into a job loss, and why it happens in residential construction first. A commercial developer building a data center in Virginia can absorb a $10,000 cost increase across a $200 million project without blinking. The math works. The contract is already signed. The financing is already in place. A residential home buyer is different. The buyer for that $320,000 house in Phoenix is a family. They have been pre-approved for a specific loan amount. They have a down payment that took them 4 years to save. They are already stretched at 7.1% mortgage rates, the highest level in over a year as of this month. When the builder tells that family the price went up $11,000, that family doesn't renegotiate. They don't find more money. They walk away, or they never make it to the table in the first place. Lower-income homebuyers are already dropping out of the market entirely, confirmed by CNBC in May 2026 as mortgage rates hit their highest level in a month. When buyers disappear, builders don't build. When builders don't build, workers don't work. Here's the data sequence, in order because the sequence matters. Step 1. Tariffs move input costs. Lumber up 32%. Steel and aluminum tariffs at 50%, effective June 2025. Additional tariff increases on steel from Brazil, Canada, the EU, Mexico, Japan, Korea, all announced for August 2025. Step 2. Builder confidence collapses. The NAHB Housing Market Index hit 32 in June 2025, the lowest since December 2022. By April 2026, it had fallen to 34. This morning it was reported at 35, below the 37 consensus estimate, 14 consecutive months below 50. Step 3. Housing starts collapse. Single-family starts are down 18% year-over-year in 2026. April came in at 930,000 annualized units, down 9% in a single month. Multifamily permits dropped 21.5% in March alone. Step 4. 60,000 construction jobs gone, concentrated in residential, confirmed by Joint Economic Committee analysis of Bureau of Labor Statistics data released April 9, 2026. And here's the detail inside that 60,000 number that makes it harder, not easier, to fix. In May 2026, total construction employment ticked up by 17,000 jobs. If you read that headline, you might think the sector is recovering. It isn't. Of those 17,000 jobs, nearly all of them were in non-residential construction, commercial, industrial, data centers and warehouses and infrastructure projects. Residential construction, the sector that builds homes for the family in Phoenix, added only 900 jobs in May, after adding only 9,000 in April. And the construction unemployment rate went up to 5.2%, even as the headline number rose. More construction workers are unemployed while the sector adds jobs because the jobs being added are not the jobs that were lost. A residential framing carpenter in Phoenix doesn't automatically become a data center electrician in Northern Virginia. Different geography, different certifications, different supply chain. The workers building houses are being squeezed. The workers building data centers are not. And the headline jobs number is hiding the difference. Here's the crack in the official version. The argument made for tariffs on Canadian lumber and imported steel was that they would protect American manufacturing jobs, American steelworkers, American mill workers, American producers who couldn't compete with subsidized foreign goods. That argument has real merit in the abstract. There are legitimate cases for protecting domestic producers of strategic materials. But here's what the ledger actually shows. The tariffs on Canadian lumber did not primarily benefit American millworkers. They raised the price of the raw material that American construction workers need to do their jobs. And the sector that absorbed that cost increased fastest, the sector with the least pricing power, the least ability to absorb cost shocks, was residential home building. NAHB chief economist Robert Dietz put it plainly. Policy uncertainty is having a negative impact on home builders, making it difficult for them to accurately price homes and make critical business decisions. It's not just pricing, it's the uncertainty on top of the cost. When a builder can't predict what lumber will cost in 3 months, he doesn't start a project whose framing budget he can't lock in. 70% of builders in June 2026 reported difficulty pricing homes due to material cost uncertainty. 37% of builders are now cutting their own prices. The highest share since NAHB began monthly tracking. They are eating the cost because their buyers can't absorb it. And the workers standing between the price the builder can afford and the project that doesn't start, those workers are the 60,000. Now here's the feedback loop, the part that doesn't show up in the monthly jobs report. Permits are the 6 to 12 month leading indicator for housing supply. The permits being canceled today become the housing shortage of late 2026 and 2027. Multifamily permits dropped 21.5% in a single month in March 2026. That is the apartment pipeline being pulled. The units that would have been available to rent in 2027 are not going to exist. The 30-year fixed mortgage rate is sitting at 7.1% as of this month, driven by 10-year Treasury yields at 4.6 to 4.7%. That means a double supply constraint is already in motion. Tariffs make it too expensive to build, and mortgage rates make it too expensive to buy. The result is a housing shortage that deepens every month another round of permits doesn't get pulled. And the people who feel that shortage in their daily lives, the families paying rent in a market with no new supply, will be told the housing shortage is a mystery of supply and demand. Remember that 60,000 number from the top of this video? Here's exactly what that looks like for specific people in specific places. James, our framing carpenter in Arizona, has been effectively out of work since April. He's not collecting unemployment yet. He's officially still employed by the contractor, just with no hours. His contractor has 2 residential projects frozen pending revised pricing approvals from the developer. That developer is waiting to see if lumber prices stabilize before committing to the project budget. James is one of 27.5% of unemployed construction workers who have now been out of work for 27 weeks or more, up sharply from 20.4% a year ago. He is not a statistic in a tariff debate. He is a skilled tradesman who built homes that people live in, and who is now watching the residential pipeline freeze in front of him while the data center going up 40 miles away requires a different certification he doesn't have. There's a family in Austin who has been saving for 4 years. They're pre-approved at $315,000. They have $8,000 in a down payment, everything they could put together at 7% mortgage rates. The home they were under contract on in February was repriced in March. The builder added $11,000 to cover material cost increases. The NAHB confirmed average tariff impact. The family couldn't close the gap. They walked away. They're renting again, in a market where multifamily permits are down 21%, which means the rental inventory they're competing for isn't being replaced either. They are the demand side of the same squeeze James is on the supply side of. And then there's the builder himself, the business in the middle. A mid-size home builder in Central Florida running 28 active units, not a public company, not a hedge fund, a family business with 30 employees. 2 of his projects have been paused because the developer on the other end won't accept the revised pricing. His revised materials costs require. He's not laying people off yet. He's keeping his crew together as long as he can, because skilled residential workers are hard to find and harder to replace. But the longer those projects stay paused, the harder the math becomes. He is the business that the tariff policy was supposed to protect, and he is the business being squeezed by it. The balance sheet is blunt. 60,000 construction workers lost their jobs not because of a downturn, not because of foreign competition, not because of a financial crisis. They lost their jobs because a tariff policy raised the cost of building homes past the point where the math worked for the buyers who needed to buy them. The stated goal of those tariffs was to protect American producers. The actual cost was paid by American builders, American framers, American plumbers, and electricians. The workers who built the last sector in this economy where a high school graduate could own a home in the city he worked in. The NAHB Housing Market Index hit 35 this morning. The 14th consecutive month below 50. Housing starts are down 18% year over year. The permits being canceled today are the rental units that won't exist in 2027. And the workers who built the houses, the ones who were supposed to be protected, are sitting on the bench in Phoenix and Austin and Central Florida, waiting for a project that won't start until the numbers stop moving. That's what the actual accounting reveals. The cost was real, the workers were real, and the math doesn't lie. If this is the first video you've landed on, this is what we do here. The story underneath the story. Subscribe to American Ledger Journal. Hit the bell so the next one finds you. And if this gave you something worth passing on, send it to someone who needs it.